everyone, and welcome to today's Gems of War video. And today I'm diving into a question raised by Honest Rob in one of his recent videos. I'll link that video in the description so you can check it out and support his channel. In that video, Rob said something along the lines of, at some point, you have to wonder whether the game needs a fresh start. This isn't just a theoretical question, it affects the future of Gems of War, which we play every day. And that immediately reminded me of another game that hit the exact same crossroads, and that is Ark Survival Evolved. Which eventually had to reinvent itself through Ark Survival Ascended, and then push towards Ark 2, which is set to be released next year. Ark Survival Evolved reached a point where the original foundation simply couldn't support the weight of everything built on top of it, and that's the same tension Honest Rob is pointing out in Gems of War. But before we get into the details, a quick credential check so you know where I'm coming from. I've been playing Gems of War for, I couldn't even remember the last when I started, but then I checked my PSN trophies and surprise, my first one was earned in 2016. So apparently, I've been here longer than my memory wants to admit. On the Ark side, I streamed Ark Survival Evolved for most of 2025, and I even beat the Tek Cave, which for anyone who hasn't played Ark is basically the game saying, bring all your best stuff and risk losing all of it. If you fail, every dinosaur and every piece of gear you brought in is gone. My first attempt wiped out a month of progress, my second attempt wiped out another month, but the third time was a charm. So, with all that experience under my belt, let's talk about whether Gems of War should follow Ark's path or avoid it entirely. Ark Survival Evolved spent years layering new systems on top of old ones. Creatures, maps, mechanics, tech. Eventually the foundation just couldn't keep up. Performance tanked, bugs multiplied, and the codebase became a tangled mess of duct tape and dodos. Wildcard finally hit a point where they said, we can't keep building on this, we need a fresh start, and that's how we got Ark Survival Ascended. And this is where the comparison starts to matter because Gems of War is facing a similar long-term challenge. Gems of War released in November 2014, making it 11 years old today. And in that time, the game has grown into 38 kingdoms with a faction for each one, over 1,700 troops as of the recording of this video, dozens of events, some weekly, some on weekends, some whenever, a sprawling economy with more types of currency than I want to count, and a user interface that has evolved piece by piece over a decade. Gems of War now feels like a city built one building at a time, without ever updating the roads, traffic lights, or city planning. Everything technically works, but nothing was designed to work together. What happens? New players get overwhelmed, veteran players feel the weight of the bloat, and the user interface is carrying 11 years of design decisions layered one on top of each other. This is exactly the kind of situation where sequels start entering serious conversation. And that's why Honest Rob, and I think that's what Honest Rob was pointing to when he said you can only patch and layer things for so long before the structure starts to show its age. Now here's the part that changes things. Ark's business model is built around selling big products. You buy the base game, and then you buy the expansions. You buy the remaster, then you buy the expansions, and eventually you buy the sequel. Every new release is a fresh revenue injection to the series. Gems of War, on the other hand, is a free-to-play game built on long-term retention. The money comes from convenience purchases, such as passes, gem top-ups, and the weapons that you only thought you wanted. The entire model depends on players sticking around, building their collections, feeling invested over time. Resetting progress doesn't just risk upsetting the players, it risks cutting off the revenue stream entirely. So while Ark benefits from sequels, Gems of War is punished by them. So let's imagine Gems of War actually launches. The moment it does, players are faced with the reality that their collection, the troops they've built, the kingdoms they've leveled, the power they've amassed, doesn't carry over. Guilds split between the old game and the new one. Spending slows because players don't want to reinvest from scratch. The community fragments, and Infinity Plus 2 now has to rebuild 11 years of content while simultaneously convincing players to start over. And here's where the comparison to Ark becomes even more important. Ark has a massive global player base, and even they struggled with community fragmentation, which still exists to this day when Survival Ascended launched. Gems of War's community is much smaller by comparison, which means any split between Gems of War and a hypothetical Gems of War 2 would hit much harder. A division that Ark could recover from might be devastating for Gems of War simply because the player pool isn't large enough to support two separate ecosystems. History also shows most free-to-play sequels underperformed their originals. You might remember MapleStory. MapleStory 2 launched with huge hype, and still the global version shut down in just 2 years because players didn't want to restart their progress. So for free-to-play players, for free-to-play games, progress isn't just the gameplay, it's the product. So here's the honest truth. Gems of War can't keep expanding forever on the current foundation. The user interface is outdated. The onboarding is overwhelming, and they are redoing the tutorial again. The economy is bloated, and the engine is showing its age. But the solution is not a sequel. The solution is a soft reboot, a modernization, if you will, a Gems of War Ascended. Yes. One thing must absolutely be non-negotiable. Collections must be preserved. Not maybe, not partially, preserved, period, end of story. Because the moment you wipe out collections, you wipe out the emotional and financial backbone of the game. If Infinity Plus 2 wants to future-proof Gems of War, the best path will look something like this. Number 1, update the engine and the backend. This will result in better performance, fewer bugs, and more flexibility for future content. Number 2, rebuild the user interface from scratch. Modern, clean interface designed for 2026 and not layered over 11 years of patches. Number 3, simplify the economy. Fewer currencies, clearer progression, and less confusion for new players. Number 4, improve the onboarding experience. In my beginner's guide, I've been talking about how new players should feel excited to keep progressing, not overwhelmed to the point where experienced players have to talk them out of uninstalling the game. A modern onboarding experience should inspire momentum, not anxiety. And 5, preserve player progressions. This cannot be stressed enough. Resetting progress risks players refusing to move over at all. If the goal is to keep a community together, progress preservation is the anchor that holds everything in place. So, should Gems of War get a sequel? Probably not. Not in the traditional sense, but should Gems of War get a major modernization, a rebuild, a fresh foundation? Absolutely. Ark needs a Ark Survival Ascended because its business model depended upon it. Gems of War needs a refresh because its business model depends on continuity. And a Gems of War Ascended would give us a modern game, a foundation strong enough for the next decade, and a stable community. Honestly, that's the version of Gems of War I'd love to see, because Gems of War doesn't need to start over, it needs room to grow. So, if you enjoyed this breakdown, please hit the like button, subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content, and in the comments below, let me know, would you play a Gems of War sequel, or do you think the game should ascend instead of restart? And do you want to see more videos like this one where I break down the potential future of Gems of War? I read every comment, and I'd love to hear your take on where you think the game should go next. And again, check out Honest Rob's original video in the description. Give it a watch, drop a like, and support his conversation as well. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.